Today we're diving into an absolute masterpiece of world literature, a story that's over 1,000 years old. We are talking about the Tale of Genji.
But let me just kick this off with a pretty wild question. What if I told you that the world's very first psychological novel, a story that really gets into the messy, complicated inner lives of its characters, wasn't written in the last couple hundred years, but was actually written by a woman in Japan 1,000 years ago?
To really wrap our heads around this story, we first have to step into its world. And it's a world that is just, it's unbelievably beautiful, but also incredibly strange to our modern eyes.
So who wrote this thing? A woman by the name of Murasaki Shikibu. She was a lady-in-waiting at the Imperial Court, which basically gave her a front-row seat to all the drama, the secret romances, and the subtle power plays of the elite. And lucky for us, she was paying very close attention. And the society she was watching was something else. In the Heian court, things like politics and war took a back seat to beauty. Seriously. Your social status was all about how well you could write a poem, your handwriting, your fashion sense, even how good you were at mixing your own personal perfume. And get this, the rules of love were totally different. Noble women were literally hidden from view, never seen by men outside their own family. So love affairs didn't start with a glance across a room. They started with rumors and secretly passed poems, building up to these clandestine nighttime visits. It was a whole world built on aesthetics and hidden feelings.
Okay, so before we get into the actual plot, there are two core ideas we absolutely have to understand. They're the philosophical soul of this story, and they explain pretty much everything about why the characters do what they do.
The first one is called mono no aware. This is such a key part of Japanese culture. It's that beautiful, kind of bittersweet sadness you feel when you realize that everything good is temporary. The perfect example is cherry blossoms, right? Their beauty is so powerful because you know they'll be gone in a week. It's not about being depressed. It's a deep, soulful appreciation for the fact that life and love and beauty don't last forever.
And the second big idea is karma. Now, you've probably heard of it, but in this story, it's crucial. It's the Buddhist concept that your actions, good and bad, send ripples out into the universe that will eventually find their way back to you. It's not some god punishing you, it's more like a law of nature. What you do will come back to shape your own life one way or another. Alright, so with those two ideas in mind, impermanence and karma, let's finally turn to the story itself, because our main character's life is a perfect, tragic example of both of them at work.
So the novel is all about this one guy, Hikaru Genji, nicknamed the Shining Prince. And honestly, the name fits. He's impossibly handsome, he's a genius at everything, poetry, music, you name it, and he's the son of an emperor. This story is absolutely epic. It follows about 70 years of his life and the lives of everyone in his orbit.
His life basically breaks down into three major acts. First, you've got his youth, the Shining Prince years. This is all about romance, ambition, and one really, really big secret crime. Then, in part two, he hits the absolute peak of his power, but that glory is followed by incredible loss and loneliness. And finally, the last part of the book takes place in a much more somber world, after Genji himself has died. And the transformation he goes through is just staggering. As a young man, he's the superstar who seems to bend the world to his will, always searching for his ideal woman. But the older Genji, he becomes the most powerful man in the country, but he's totally alone, haunted by the choices he made when he was young. It's an incredible look at how time and our own actions change us. So what's driving this brilliant man? Well, it's something straight out of a psychology textbook. Genji's mother died when he was just a little kid, and he spends his entire life trying to find her again in other women. And this obsession leads him to his greatest love and his greatest sin, a forbidden, all-consuming passion for his own stepmother, Fujitsubo, for one reason. She's the spitting image of his dead mother. And this, right here, is where that whole karma thing comes back in a huge way. So first, Genji has a secret affair with his stepmother, his father's wife, and they have a child who everyone thinks is the emperor's heir and who actually becomes the next emperor. It's treason, hidden in plain sight. Now, flash forward a couple of decades. Genji is at the top of his game, but he discovers that his own young wife is having an affair, and the child she gives birth to is not his. And in that moment, he gets it. This is the universe handing his own crime right back to him. It's a perfect, painful karmic echo. But karma isn't the only force that brings him pain. The deepest wound comes from mono no aware, that sadness of impermanence. See, Genji finds a young girl named Murasaki. He basically adopts her, raises her, and molds her into his perfect partner, and she becomes the absolute love of his life. But after they've spent decades together, she gets sick and she dies, leaving him completely and utterly broken. There's this quote from the book that just captures his grief perfectly. After Murasaki is gone, every little sound, the distant ringing of a temple bell, the sad cry of a bird, becomes an unbearable reminder of what he's lost. The sound of the bell in particular is a symbol of impermanence, how all things fade. His entire world has become an echo of his sorrow. So, okay, the story's deep, it's philosophical, but what really makes it so revolutionary? What makes it arguably the first novel?
This is the part that blows my mind. The Tale of Genji is not a story about heroes slaying monsters or kings conquering lands. No, its biggest battles are the ones fought inside the characters' own minds. It is one of the very first works of literature to make the internal, psychological world of people its main focus.
And think about what that really means. Murasaki Shikabo wasn't just writing about what people did, but what they thought and felt. She dives right into how they worry, how they despair, how they try to rationalize their own bad behavior. She explores these incredibly complex, messy emotions like jealousy and regret and self-loathing, with a realism that feels like it could have been written yesterday.
Okay, so, a 1,000-year-old story from a world that's long gone. Why should we still care about it today? What can it possibly teach us about our own lives?
Well, because it forces us to ask some really big, timeless questions. Take success, for example. Genji had it all: money, power, looks, talent. He was the ultimate success story. But he died alone and miserable. It makes you ask, what does fulfillment really look like? And the characters are so deeply flawed. They're selfish, they're weak, they make terrible choices. But the book never really judges them. It just shows them as human, which makes us wonder if we can learn to accept our own imperfections too. Ultimately, I think the reason this novel has survived for a millennium is because it's a profound exploration of the human heart. Reading it is like looking in a mirror and seeing right through time. It shows us that our core desires, our deepest fears, our search for love, and our grief over loss, none of that has really changed at all.
So in the end, by showing us a man who got everything he ever thought he wanted, and still ended up empty, this ancient story leaves us with a very urgent and very modern question. What does a happy life truly look like?